Posey comes down with it. The Buckeyes get the 2-point conversion. They have cut Purdue's lead to 8. About 7 minutes it looks.
Alright, welcome to part 3 of Joe Custom Celebration, I guess 4 Dio section, or not Dio section, how-to section on how to add LEDs. I'm going to show you today is pictures. I'm going to embed the pictures in the video of what I've done so far. I've cut, I dremeled out here for a switch. So we have a power switch. Well, actually, it's probably not going to work now because it's wedged in there, but yeah, it works. There it goes. There's a little power switch right there. I also dremeled this area where the old weapons sit and put a battery connector in there. And that way it's easy to change the batteries. Reason being is there's not a lot of room on here for battery packs. I looked underneath to try and find a spot to put it. You'd have to take pretty much this bottom piece off to change your battery out. So I'm going to probably make something to go around here to disguise the battery as either a missile rack or some other type of rack for the Joes. And underneath here you see where I've had to cut for my wires, and I've cut my wires. Got a little bit of solder flux on there. It helps the solder flow on, and I'm going to show you guys how to solder some of these wires on today and finish routing all this up to the front to our headlight mounts. I'm also going to do a little drilling and mount our headlights in this today as well, and everything should be working by the end of this video. So on to number next. I got breakers helping me here. Actually, figures work pretty good for holding wires down. I'm probably eventually going to put some tape here, but I like to have the wire a little bit free so I can work with it. So I'll put breaker in here, have him, I mean, if you want, you can actually have him hold the wire. That way you can put it at an angle you want, and if you look, he's holding it pretty good. Now, I've let my soldering iron heat up for a little while. I got a soldering station here. Got some flux on a Q-tip, and I got a wet sponge. And the reason for wet sponge is to shock the tip of your soldering iron. There's already solder on there, but if you shock your tip, it makes it where a lot of times it'll help if you clean your tip too. But you shock it and you just get a little bit of solder on there, and it helps. It helps the rest of the solder flow. Plus, you can put a little solder flux on there too. That really helps. Also helps clean the metal that you're working with. So you just stick your soldering iron on your wire here to tin the wire. You've seen wires where they have, looks like a little bit of solder or something on the tip of it. That's called tinning. And you just touch your soldering iron and some solder to it. All you need is a very little bit. Then you come down here to the switch, and you can sit here and, well, sometimes it helps if you have a I use a variable 1530 watt soldering iron. It's a cheapie. Having upgraded to a good one, I'm going to buy a soldering station next, so that when I do solder, I can regulate my voltage temperature, or my temperature and my voltage going to the soldering iron. Most LEDs want about 200, no more than 200, 300 degrees. when you solder to keep from burning them up. That's why I'll use the 15-watt setting when I work with that. Switches and wires, you can pretty much use your own discretion, whatever you're comfortable with, or whatever is actually going to work for you. There you go. Get a little solder on that. Now, since Breaker's holding the wire, I can use him to actually hold the wire on the post, in place on the post. Now some posts have holes in them where you can stick the wire through, which I'm trying to do on this one. Others, the wire may be too big. Most of the time though, you just pretty much add a little heat to it and push. And like that. Wires in. I will show close up. There'll be some close up pictures in here coming up. And just add a little more solder. With solder, you don't have to gob it on. A little bit goes a long way. Reason being is if you gob it on, you'll get something that's called a cold joint, and you won't get any voltage or current flow through your wire with the cold joint. So it'll act like an open, and your thing will work, and you don't know why. So a lot of times when you're soldering, if everything's soldered and set up and it doesn't work, start checking your solder joints. A lot of times you might have overheated them and created a cold joint. Turn that back to 15, put it back in my little handy dandy holder here. And next I'm going to tin another wire that's going to run from the other side of the switch forward. Now the black wire eventually is going to get probably set here, and I'll add both grounds to one wire, and then both positive leads are going to go to one wire since it's going to be in parallel. Plus I'll have to add the resistors. I'll probably add the resistors to the actual back of the LEDs and just make it look like they belong there, like they're part of it. And actually, it might actually look pretty cool once it's done. So take this wire, put a little flux on it. I got my flux and stuff set, on a Q-tip sitting here. And you just take your soldering iron, add a little solder to it, and then you just sit here and voila, got a tinned wire. Take your other wire. I don't really need Breaker to hold it for me this time, so he's just going to sit there and watch. And see how the hole is a little bit bigger because this is a little bit bigger wire going out. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take the tinned wire and actually bend it at a 90-degree angle. So I can put it bent at a 90-degree angle so it'll make contact here. Heat them up. And I got it on there, but I'm going to add a little more solder flux. That's what flux looks like. It's kind of a paste. There's other kinds. There's liquid. I like the paste. A little bit easier to work with. Different people have different like to use different things. And some more solder on that one. Get it nice and flowing. There it goes. There we go. Now then, put that over there. Breaker, thank you very much. Have my wires. Keep running them this way. I mean, you can run these wires any way you want. I've seen some people will run power on one side, ground on another. That's actually the ideal way. That way you don't, anything rubs, it won't short out on you or anything.